Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts. It's gonna be fast. Here we are with a Core Life After Hours Quickie.
Da, 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 da. That was about all we had for that one, right?
Yeah, well, we're still workshopping the intro. So this is our second short episode we're putting out. We're trying to get into the habit of making smaller form videos. They're just little bite-sized discussions that you can sink your teeth into while we work on our bigger episodes. Last time it was that wonderful piece of helicopter footage that I came across. This one is one that Jaster found. Tell us how you found it, Jaster.
All right, so there's a lot of times that I kind of spend in the post-editing side of our videos just trying to catch a glimpse of what's boot on the ground news or videos get posted, that kind of stuff, and trying to find things to put in videos, right, or to make videos on. And like in particular, I was looking around for audio in South Carolina whenever I came across this video, which actually took place in Oregon. Now, we're going to throw up the video and everything. Like, this is a fair use. We're just going to declare that here. We're going to declare that in the video description as well. But
It's transformative because we are commentating on it. So,
right, we're just here to have that discussion. So, with that, let's go ahead and bring it on up.
What the absolute fuck is it? Starting to regret that I stopped at this rest stop. What the? And they say Bigfoot isn't real?
I believe
97.
97. We're going to go ahead and play it. I'm going to play it in the thing for us so we can hear it. But what you end up hearing in this video clip is somebody at a truck stop in an 18-wheeler just on his phone hearing this thing go off in the woods. And the one thing that like really set it apart for me whenever I was listening to it was whenever I was really listening to it, every single potential animal that I've listened to in the past to try and get a misidentification possibility out of the way just fell flat. And like I said, whenever you go through this video, you can hear this thing. Like whatever it is has a lung capacity that is just astounding. And it's not making a call like an elk or like a moose, which would be the two things that in my mind would be the likely culprit for something like this. Like an elk's bugle, like a bull's in particular, can actually get pretty bassado or bass heavy in their bugles, especially in the rut. But what you're hearing here is wild. Now, Kaz, you want to kind of chime in a little bit with what you feel like on the audio side?
Yes, so the first thing that struck me when you shared this clip with me, I've listened to quite a bit of Bigfoot audio at this point. I've listened to a lot of calls. Of course, there's the Sierra sounds, so I've listened to, some Squatch speak as well. I've never heard a Bigfoot call that made the hair stand up on my neck like this the way it does. Ever. Usually there's kind of like this is kind of interesting, but something about this just creeps me out, and I don't really know what it is about it that unsettles me. I think part of it is the fact that it sustains on some of these and like holds those notes it's doing during these howls or these calls or whatever you want to call them.
Right. It has a terribly long ability to keep a note, but like what I really want to get into is like here in the post-editing part, I want to try to put this through a spectral analysis because I have a feeling one of the things that's really kind of off-putting about this is I believe that we have a two-tone call, like kind of like the
Oh.
Ohio howl or some of the other whooping sounds that you might hear in other Bigfoot audio. I do think that two-tone call is that inherently dissonant thing in the back of our head that our subconscious picks up and goes, something's not right. Because it can discern things that our conscious mind really cannot, right? And the one thing that I feel like is pretty common in spectral analysis of suspected Bigfoot audio is whenever the two-tone call comes up. And hopefully I can get that together and be able to explain that in a separate little audio clip here. That way you guys can kind of see visually what I'm talking about. But if I can't figure that out, I highly recommend you guys to check out Thinker Thunker and the Whoop Project. Now, he can be a little divisive as a figure in the community. However, I do truly believe the audio portion of his research is something that's groundbreaking and something that we really do need to look at as a viable way of collecting evidence in the subject. And the one thing that he's really right off the bat figured out was the fact that a lot of these calls, a lot of these classic Bigfoot media that we come from and we hear about all the time has two tones to it. It's like whatever this creature is, it has the ability to sing two pitches at the same time. And that's not something human vocal cords or really almost any vocal cord in the animal kingdom is capable of producing. Now, the next part that's kind of fun was, Kaz, how long do you feel like it took us to figure out where the heck this even might have took place at?
So, there's exactly one piece of information that we were able to seize upon in this video, which is there's text at the bottom that says Highway 97, trucker name, time stamp, Highway 97 rest stop. So, within like just a couple minutes of Jaster sending this to me, I immediately pulled up the list of all the rest stops on Highway 97, and we immediately just began crawling Google Maps, which, classic armchair research. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just look at maps. And within minutes, we'd already crossed out a couple locations, and we have 2 candidates we think are likely for this. And we're going to throw them up on the screen as we mention them. So the first one Jaster found is... which one was it?
It was the Collier State Park rest stop. It was the public use area, really. Because
there's only like, outside of the location, we only have a couple of visual indicators. We know that this is a rest stop that's large enough for trucks to pull in, like, double parked.
Right.
We know that there are trees at the edge of the rest stop, and these are some pretty sparse woods, and that's really all we had to go off of.
Well, I would say sparse relative to maybe other parts of the U.S. because when it comes to a lot of the rest stops on that particular highway, we were able to eliminate 80% of them because of the lack of trees on the rest stop.
Yep.
So, like, the 2 that we came up with were the ones that actually had enough trees that we seen that would be able to create this kind of effect that you see in the video where there is a good amount of trees and it can't really see very far. Like, if any of these other rest stops on the place that are on the highway that we were looking at, the trees weren't even tall enough to be considered the trees that were in the video. We're like maybe talking 8-10 foot trees. These are like 15-20 foot suckers in this video, you know what I mean? The other part of it was just the fact that, let me go ahead and play it again, make sure I'm not crazy here. Like you said, the way that these trucks are parked up and the drive-through around the way that a car can move around these trucks really indicates a ovular parking lot, which there weren't that many that were set up like that on the highway. So with cross-elimination, we brought it down to Collier State Park. And where was the other one, Kaz? Where was yours?
The Beaver Marsh rest area.
And that one had a lot of the same stuff. I also think that Beaver Marsh isn't as wooded as Collier State Park. Like, Collier State Park's rest stop is like smack dab in the middle of a bunch of woods.
I
And
feel a lot more confident about Beaver Marsh, but we haven't been able to find an exact match because part of the problem is that it's nighttime in the clip, and that's concealing a lot of detail for us.
right. And there was only really I would say maybe a 60-degree like panning when it came to the camera itself. Like,
And not only that, but also the like on foot angles from the Google Maps car is like
really bad.
10 plus years old.
Yeah,
So
really bad. To be fair,
we're fairly certain we have the area it's in, though.
yeah, there's like a bunch of stuff that goes on in this area too. Like, Klamath Falls is really close to both of these rest stops. And
Yes, I was actually, when I was reading over the names of weird areas these rest stops were near, I was like, I recognize a couple of these names because I have definitely read reports in this area. Because this is smack dab in the middle of Oregon, which, as we all know, is part of the Northwest Sasquatch corridor.
like, not only that, I would say Oregon had probably a bigger amount of native lore surrounding Bigfoot than like probably some of even the more Californian based Indian groups. They were up there with Washington State and British Columbia with how many tales there are. Now, the other part of it that really kind of gets this whole situation really fun is the fact that there's just not a whole lot of really good Bigfoot audio that gets submitted nowadays, even for the just how easy it is to get decent sound equipment. And a lot of it is honestly because most of the time when people got weird stuff going on, it ain't like they're out there trying to find it, you know. Like, this guy was literally trying to post up to go to sleep in his 18-wheeler, and it was like, oh dang, well, I guess I'm not sleeping that good tonight. And a lot of the times whenever there's a Bigfoot sighting or an audio recording takes place, it's by people that had absolutely no idea what they were walking into when they woke up this morning.
Yeah.
And so I can't really blame somebody for being like, oh, well, I got this on my phone. You know, like, if you're somebody who's out researching this topic semi-frequently, then maybe I would say, yeah, you probably need to invest a little bit in what you're using to record, just to make sure the quality is better than just bog standard stuff. However, the one thing about this clip is that even though this is on this dude's cell phone, I ain't had no problem hearing this. Like, this was very pronounced. Whatever it was either very loud or closer than maybe I wanted it to be. However, that was really kind of what we wanted to see, is that, like, there's not a lot of fresh, good Bigfoot stuff. I see a lot of times whenever people are making these clip videos where they're just taking audio from other Bigfoot recordings and slapping it on there, or you're getting like a call that is almost too similar to really see if it's the same audio clip, just distorted or elongated or what. And this one was really uniquely different to me. Like, the only other one that I feel like it is somewhat similar to is the metal detecting in Alaska video.
Yeah.
And even then, it's not the same call. I would say it's the same kind of call. And with that, that's a pretty interesting topic. Maybe we can get into that. Because there's times whenever people get a really good audio recording, like the Sierra sounds, and we can't have a point of reference for it for years. You know, where just recently, like I think 40 years after the recordings of the Sierra sounds, there was the Kentucky Howl, right? Which, for those who don't know, is a audio recording in central eastern Kentucky, I believe, that characterizes the same whooping call that was present in the Sierra sounds, which is really scientifically significant, because now we have two instances of the same kind of call being used and the spectral analysis is similar enough to where we can say with probable certainty or a high likelihood that this is the same species. Because it's not the same individual. That was shown on spectral analysis. However, we're talking same species. Same characteristics are exhibited. And I would like to see if the same kind of thing can be done with this short video and the metal detecting in Alaska video. Maybe we'll figure out something with that. That would be a pretty cool use of my time. Now, what else were you wanting to really kind of bring into this conversation, Kaz? Because this one is kind of cool.
Outside, I do have an anecdote about this clip. So I have a friend I talk with on every Wednesday night. We kind of have a weekly powwow, talk about how things are going in our life, talk about the state of the world, maybe watch some shows together, stuff like that. And I showed this clip to her, and she played it, and she said it woke her cat up and spooked the hell out of it.
Honestly, that's another barometer.
And I want to know why this is important, because she plays animal clips for her cat all the time, and he never reacts to anything. But this made him shoot up and be super alert. Like, his ears were perked up and rotating in, like, full radar mode. Like, he thought a threat was around.
So, like, my two cats are actually rescues, right? Like, one I found in the city, but the other one was a woods cat. Like, found her up underneath a overturned canoe out in my parents' woods, right? Now, they're a pretty good barometer for that too, because both my cats can hear through my headphones sometimes whenever I've got a clip playing, or sometimes I'll have it on my surround sound system, right? Now, a lot of the times they're just kind of whatever. Like, Nona likes birds, obviously, but other than that, Shadow's pretty nonchalant about videos, and Nona is pretty interested, but not scared of them, right? Until we get certain supposed Bigfoot audio clips, which I wouldn't say it's all of them. I think there are plenty of them where they're I'm not that worried about it, right? But there are certain ones where even through my noise canceling headphones, Shadow will wake up out of a sleep and just his ears will be up and he is wide awake. Now, he's not poofy, spooked poofy. Like Nona, sometimes she'll just straight up leave. Whenever it's she's hell no. And then I have to find her and she's crawled up underneath the bookcase or something.
Yeah.
So that one's a pretty good one. And I know that I've heard that plenty of times where somebody will be oh, I was listening to a Bigfoot call that reminded me of the one that I heard in the woods and my dogs did not like it. Or my cat was gone. I don't know where my cat went. You know what I mean? So, there's an old adage of when you're out there in the woods and everything, you pay attention and you trust your animals. Especially when I was a kid going through the woods with my dog, I had a situation. I guess we can go ahead. You want to go ahead and get into it? I don't know if I ever put this story directly on the podcast or not.
I know we've talked about it in recording in the earliest days of the podcast, but let's go ahead and throw it out there again.
Okay, so I think I was about 11 or 12 years old, and I was living out in Martin County part-time on custody visits to my biological father's house. And we lived in a place where there were some weird things that happened every now and then. We had an old neighbor that she would say a couple of times, there were people, really, really big homeless people with fur coats in the woods. And my dad would always say, no, that sounds crazy, you know what I mean? Trying to, calm her down. But after we get home, he'd be I don't want you guys over the ridge at night. I don't want you guys outside in the woods at night. You got to be within the lights. All that kind of stuff. And as a kid, I'm oh, well, maybe there are homeless people out in the woods like that. You know what I mean? Who knows? Now, being a kid out in the woods, where you're spending all weekend hours out there living in the woods, fishing, hunting, doing whatever, just being a kid, those woods are yours, right? Whoever owns the deed to the property be damned, you know what I mean? I'm out here every day. These are my woods. That's just how kids are. And so me and my dog went up above the ridgeline in the middle of the day, which is something that, he wasn't a big fan of, but he wasn't getting mad at me to that point where he was you can't even explore out in the woods in the middle of the day. No, that's stupid. He just made sure the dog went with me. And for reference, this dog was an older dog. She was probably, I think at the time she was 18 years old, 19 years old. Now, this dog lived until she was 24, and she was a mutt, which is an incredibly long time for an animal. Now, with that being said, she didn't get up and move too fast, right? And I wasn't exactly running through the woods, so she was keeping up with me, and I was doing good. And so we were heading up over this ridge in this valley where years later logging would occur. And this is beforehand, so there's tons of woods going on here. It's all kinds of dense, okay? I'd seen one dirt road, and I was kind of following it, and I had come up to a rundown house where it looked like it was just ripped to pieces. And it was mostly all wood, right? There was maybe metal slabs on the top for some shingles, basically for this the ceiling and the roof. But other than that, it was mostly all wood. And it just looked ripped to pieces, like something was pulling the planks out of it. Like, yeah, there was some degradation, but it didn't really look like it was that old of a house. And that was when I noticed how quiet the woods were. And I had always kind of figured, my dog was wanting to head up ahead of me, right? This whole time. Like, that's kind of normal for her. But what wasn't normal was just the fact that she was continually staring in one direction, like in one particular vector, okay? And her hackles were up, and she started slowly backing up to where she got to me, and then she started pushing me back, okay? And I didn't know. I just knew the old wisdom of you trust your dog, okay?
Yeah.
And like I said, I start backing out of the woods myself, and I realized that she was ahead of me the entire time I was walking into the woods, okay? As I was retreating back to the house, she was staying in between me and the woods still. She wasn't leading me back. So that one kind of had my hackles up as well a little bit, but when I got back home, I really didn't think too much of it. I didn't really talk about it because as far as I was concerned, I was going to get in trouble for even being out that far.
Yeah.
And years later, when we're talking about all of these kind of reports, all these kind of anecdotal stories of kids going out or people being out and their dog having a really weird reaction, kind of sent me back a little bit. And I remembered that day, and I was like, well, I mean, I'm not necessarily sure I was close to one. All I know is that the woods were completely quiet, and my dog was acting like there was a big problem, and it was wanting me out of the woods. And my dog was not a loud dog. It was not one to be aggressive. She was always a defensive dog. So, like, whenever she saw something she didn't like, her first thing was to get all of the kittens around the house up underneath the dog shed or up underneath the porch, where something can't really easily get to it. And she would guard the kittens or guard the cats even. So her pulling me back was just one of those things where, like, I didn't really see it as strange to me just because of how guarding she was naturally. But looking back at it, yeah, she definitely felt like something was there, obviously, and she wanted me away from it. Now, God, I love that dog. She was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't really think of Bigfoot until I remember my old lady neighbor across the road talking about how she was seeing hairy, huge homeless people in her woods out her back window at night. And I'm like, okay. And then, so I go on the BFRO website, and it turns out Martin County, Indiana has multiple reports.
Yeah.
And so maybe that one's a little wilder. I do remember other kind of stories, weird things happening in that part of southern Indiana as well, around the Hillham area, for people that are around the Orange County, Martin County, DuBois County, Tri-County area. Now, if any of you guys have any weird anecdotal stories you guys want to put in here, talk about in the comments, absolutely. Let's have a conversation. And if you guys have any weird audio recordings you want to post in here or send to us, you can always do so. We got our email account. We'll put it in the description there, but you can also view it on the channel. It is korliveproductions@gmail.com. And just title it with your Bigfoot submission here, and we'll do our best to put it on the show. But with that, I think that's it for this particular clip that we wanted to put out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll do it for this Core Live Quickie. We'll come up with a better name for this as we continue the series along, because there's one thing we're always doing. We're always evolving, and we're always growing. So, we will see you next time when we come back from our trip to the Red River Gorge Bigfoot Festival and talk about it and what we did there.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a blessed night, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.